Hello everybody, this is Ted Wainman here and I am from the Society of Business Professionals and I am your trainer who will be running the Finance for Non-Financial Executives in Telecoms session coming up soon. The aim of this webinar is to introduce myself and to run you through the agenda for the 3-day workshop, giving you the opportunity to have a think about any additional areas that you would like me to cover during the workshop. So let's start off with day one. The aim of day one is to put in place the basic building blocks for the workshop. The aim is that delegates will come to the workshop with various levels of financial knowledge, some of which may not be 100% correct. The first day will therefore confirm knowledge in some areas, fill in some gaps, and ensure that everybody has the minimum fundamental of knowledge in order to be able to progress to day two. So what are we going to cover during day one? We're going to start off with introductions and housekeeping. We'll then introduce the concepts of finance, look at statutory accounts and management accounts and the use of jargon in the financial world. We'll then come on to looking at how a company is financially structured and how a company trades. This session will introduce the concept of a company as a separate legal entity, the accounting equation, the role of the balance sheet in the income statement or profit and loss account and how they interact. And we'll also look at cash and accrual accounting and the implications for your organization. We'll then come on to look at how a company is funded, looking at debt and equity and the concerns of the debt versus the equity investor. And we'll briefly touch on the use of derivatives to manage risk. And we'll finish day one looking at the key financial statements, the income statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow, and how they interact with each other. And we'll get a greater understanding of the various business models different organizations use and how STC compares with some of its key competitors. That's a full day for day one and brings us on to day two. And the aim of day two is to build on the knowledge gained during the first day. So while the first day will focus on helping delegates to understand what is in the financial statements, the second day will help delegates to read and interpret this financial information. We'll start the day with a little quiz to confirm our knowledge from day one, and then we'll look at operational gearing. We'll look at the income statement in depth, we'll look at the return on capital employed, we'll look at EBIT, EBITDA, EPS and DPS, margin and markups and break-even analysis and price sensitivity, and start to think about the implications for STC and their business model. We'll then look at financial gearing, the use of debt to fund the business and the effect of leverage and the need to be able to service that debt through the interest cover. We'll then look at working capital, define the working capital, the difference between the liquidity ratio and the acid test, and think about managing inventory and the need for working capital requirement and how it can be calculated. And the final session on day two is a case study which will pull together all of the information that we've covered on days 1 and 2 and test our ability to read and interpret a set of financial statements. This then leads us into day 3, which is applying the concepts that we've covered in day 1 and 2 to our specific operational business units and areas. So whereas the knowledge to read and interpret the financial statements was covered in day 2, this last day will focus on the management accounts used by the STC to run the business and to make operational and strategic decisions. The aim of this last day is to consolidate the learning and ensure that all delegates are able to apply the concepts to your day-to-day business activities. A lot of this will be revision for us, but we'll look at the costs, the types, how they behave, their financial treatment, OPEX and CAPEX. We'll look at accruals and prepayments, accrued income and deferred income, particularly important in the telecoms world, depreciation and amortization. Look at the various methods of depreciation, understand the difference between OPEX and COPEX, and how to identify cost drivers. We'll look at capital investment decision making, so the techniques such as net present value, discounted cash flow, internal rates of return, and how we can actually assess and allocate capital correctly within the business. Look at budgets, how we put budgets together, the different types of budgets, and how we can read and interpret the management accounts and therefore keep our budgets up to date through regular forecasting. We'll look at concepts such as incremental versus zero-based and how we can flex the budget in order to identify the variance analysis. And this last session will really focus on flexing the budget, identifying the cost drivers, and being able to analyze the variances with greater confidence. That's a whistle-stop tour through what we're going to be covering over the 3 days. No doubt you'll have a few questions. Do have a little think about what we've identified in the agenda. If you do have any additional items that you would like to cover, then please do let me know at the beginning of the workshop, and we can make sure that we incorporate them into the agenda. So that's me. I'm on LinkedIn, so if you want to stay in touch with me, you can do so. I've written a book which I'll be bringing copies, so all delegates will get a copy of the book. So it just leaves me to say I'm greatly looking forward to returning to your fantastic country, and I look forward to seeing you very soon at the beginning of the workshop.